Welcome to the Discount Property Investor Podcast, where we show you how to buy real estate at a discount so you can create wealth over time and income today. Our mission is to share what we have learned from the experience of others and help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate, the Discount Property Investor way. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome back, Discount Property Investors. Your host, Mike Slane and David Dodge here. Thanks for joining us. We are excited to jump into today's episode about contracts. If you're interested in learning more about wholesaling, we've got a full course on freewholesalecourse.com. There's a link on our main website, thediscountpropertyinvestor.com. There you can see all our properties, and like I said, find that link to freewholesalecourse.com. You'll be able to find all this content available for you. So today we are talking about contracts. Dave, you want to jump in and kind of give your take on contracts and
Absolutely.
how we can get started with that?
Absolutely. So after you do your marketing and you start sending out tons and tons of offers, somebody is going to accept your offer and you are going to have yourself a deal. So at that point in time, you want to either send them a contract or maybe your offer was a contract. It just depends if you're sending out letters of intent or if you're sending out actual contracts. Either way, you're going to send that contract out to them and they're going to sign that contract. You're going to receive that contract back, and the next steps will be to take that contract to your local title company. Some states use closing attorneys. We're going to focus on what we do. We're located in St. Louis, Missouri, and our state uses title companies. So what we'll do is we'll take our contract to our title company and we will do what's called opening escrow. So we will give the contract to the title company, and then we will also bring in funds that match the earnest money deposit that's stated on the contract. So on our freewholesalecourse.com, we have a couple different examples of contracts that we actually use in our business, our day-to-day business. And you can go there and you can download those. They're out there for you on the freewholesalecourse.com. And
so first, quick disclaimer though, we're not attorneys,
Absolutely.
and each state is different, so you definitely want to have an attorney or maybe a real estate agent kind of help you through it, make sure that the contract makes sense for your area.
it's a very good point.
Yeah, and you're going to want to know if closing companies, title companies do it, or if attorneys do it in your state. It's going to determine.
Yeah, so maybe talk to a local attorney within your area, your state, your city, and then also if you are a licensed agent, you'll have board certified contracts that you can use. So I'm personally not a licensed agent as of today. Mike is, and
Unfortunately, sometimes there's
right.
a lot of rules for it.
But Mike sometimes will use a special sales contract. Me personally, not being a licensed agent, I just use a simple 1 or 2 page contract. Very, very basic stuff. So talking about contracts, let's talk about just some of the basis of the contract. The contract's typically going to start out and it's just going to be a purchase and sale or a contract to purchase. It's going to have the buyer's name, address, and info. It's going to have the seller's name, address, and info. And it's going to have the subject property, what's actually being purchased, what is being transacted there. There may or may not be a short little area for a legal description. And then from there, you just kind of get into a couple things. You get into the earnest money, you get into the cost of the transaction, you get into acceptance periods and dates, you get into inspection periods and dates, and then you get into the close. Am I missing anything, Mike?
Yeah, there's not a lot to it. Again, so yeah, parts of the contract. Most importantly, you want to put your name or your LLC's name, like whoever's purchasing the property, the subject property itself, the price, and the close date. Those are really only the 4 things.
Those are the main 4 things. So sometimes
needed.
there's an acceptance period where you'll say, hey, I'm going to send you an offer, but you don't want that offer to be good for 20 years, obviously.
Right.
You want them to come back in 4 months and say, oh, I need to sell, let's do this. So I usually will give them maybe a week, sometimes 2. I've done it in the past where I've given them up to a month if it's a really good deal. It's like, hey, take your time. When you're ready to move, this is my offer. It's good for X number of days. So there may be the acceptance period. When you're talking about inspection periods, we typically like to shoot for maybe 15 to 20 days. one great trick that you can use to extend your inspection period is by adding the word business. So if you have a 10-day inspection period, that's obviously 10 days. However, if you put in the word business, 10 days could really be as many as 14 because you get those extra weekend days. So, sometimes we'll add in the word business if we need to, buy ourselves a little bit extra time.
Yeah, and so the reason the inspection period is important in wholesaling, so again, I think David did a pretty good breakdown of what's happening. So you've done some marketing, you've made some offers, now you've got a contract going. So once you have a contract, the reason you want a longer inspection period is it gives you more time to find that C buyer, to find the end buyer that's going to come in with the cash and close. So again, if you don't have the cash to purchase it outright, longer inspection period definitely helps with that.
And you're absolutely right, Mike. Absolutely. You always want to go out and you want to try to find that end buyer, the C buyer that that has the cash to close. But additionally, you're going to use that inspection period to do your due diligence. You're going to use that to make sure that your repair costs, your estimate of repair cost, is in the ballpark. It is a decent and fair estimate, and then also your after repair value that you had kind of estimated, by pulling your comps and figuring out what the like properties in the area, the like bed bath or the like square footage in the area is going for. So you can use that inspection period to really determine that your numbers are correct. So for any reason, if you come back and you say, as an example, I thought the repair costs were going to be 15 grand and it turns out they're 25 grand. After I maybe brought in one of my inspectors or one of my, contractors, then you can use that inspection period time to either exit the contract or renegotiate, which is what I always recommend. If you've already spent all that time and effort and money, marketing and sending out offers, and you finally get it under contract, the last thing you want to do is exit that deal. Always try to renegotiate, because usually the seller at that point is really motivated. They're happy that they have an offer on the property.
They've already cashed the check.
They've already cashed the check mentally. Yeah. Very good point.
It's once it's under contract, most people are ready to close, so you can kind of use that as a little bit of extra leverage.
Absolutely.
In that, again, once they've agreed, say, to $100,000, well, if you come back and say, man, I really need to get this at 95 to make this deal work,
or even 85,
right? Then it's not a huge deal to them. They're already ready to be rid of the property. They've already made that decision that it's gone. They want to put it behind them. So often, again, it's helpful. And the inspection, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing your due diligence, like you said. You're getting a contractor through there to find out, oh shoot, this is, here's your actual repair costs, and they are $25,000 instead of $15,000. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's
what
one
it
of
is.
the things I struggle with is estimating my repair costs. So in another episode, we'll kind of jump into into some simple formulas that you can use based on square footage, or maybe just fixed numbers for different items like kitchens and bath. But it's a whole different episode.
Yeah, we should do a walkthrough too. We'll do a walkthrough of a house
down the road. Absolutely, that'd be a great episode. So, but anyway, back to contracts. So then you're going to have your inspection period, and then you're usually going to have your close date, which I usually put maybe 1 week out from the end of my inspection period. So if I can get my inspection period to be 2 or 3 weeks, then I'll make my close date 1 week beyond that. But
that's
really,
funny.
Dave, you can do it wide open, though.
Yeah, we worked together, and I didn't know that's how we did it. I write my inspection day for as long as I can. Then I almost always write the close date 1 month from the day of the writing of the contract.
Even longer than
so it's
what I'm doing.
1 month or sooner is usually what I'll write.
Sure.
So typically we'll try to close sooner.
Yeah, that's a great
I always like to
point.
just give myself, and the reason I do that too, I tell the people, we're dependent on the title company. So it's as quick as they can get everything processed. And
very good point.
Again, if it's an attorney, it's as quick as they can get everything, the title cleared for us.
Yeah.
So you want to give yourself time for that as well. And if you can close it in 2 weeks, great. If it's going to take a month, well, you don't have to go back and amend the contract.
That's a really good point, Mike. I'd like that. And I do want to emphasize honor before. Use that wording in the contract. So, let's say you tell the seller that you're going to be closing, mid February, for example. Then in your contract, you would like to have that stated, maybe honor before February 15th. And then that way, it is kind of up to the title company. We've used dozens of title companies here in St. Louis. And some title companies can do a deal in 4 to 6 days. Others, it may take them 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So, you can always kind of lean on your title company, and or use them as an excuse to say, hey, I can't close it in 4 days because the title company just can't process these documents and pull title and clear all these liens in this amount of time. So that's a very, very good point.
And they're going to help you with the contract too. If you get into a property and you've written a contract yourself or made some edits to one of our templates that we have out there, they'll tell you, hey, this doesn't work here. Like this is no good. We had them come back to us on, I guess it was an assignment agreement. And they said, this doesn't look right to us. It doesn't,
They sent us an assignment.
They sent us exactly the verbiage they wanted in there. So again, your title company will become one of your best friends, and we can do another episode about
absolutely. But what's
companies.
important with the title companies and or closing attorneys, if that's the state that you're in, is try to build a relationship with these folks, because if you're walking in there and you're requesting documents, they're not just going to hand them over to you most likely. However, if you brought them business, and the more and more business that you bring these folks, the more and more likely they're going to be to want to work with you and help you, and make sure that you're successful. Because if you're successful, that means that they're getting business, and then they'll be successful. So
we're digressing. I'm going to hit one more thing on title companies. So when you're calling around and trying to figure out who you're going to close with, if you call them and ask them, do you know how to do a double close, or can you do an assignment or anything like that, and they say what, move on to the next title company.
Very good point.
But again, so anyways, we're digressing. So let's get back to the contracts.
Sure,
We've talked about purchase and sale. We've talked about different types. We also can talk about the assignment then.
Absolutely. So the your A to B transaction is going to be a purchase and sale contract or purchase and sale agreement. And then once you get that locked up and you've opened escrow.
Right, so your B to C could also be a purchase and sale.
It could. That's a good point.
So that's a double close.
That's a double close.
That's a double close, the A to B, B to C.
Yep.
So then the other side of it is the assignment.
Yep.
Which would be you go out and you get your A to B contract, and then you find your C buyer, and you just straight up write a simple assignment agreement, say that you now, the C buyer now, is responsible for everything in this contract. You guys both sign that and agree to it.
So I personally love assignments for multiple reasons. The main reason is you don't have to close. You literally just take your contract from A to B and you sell it to a third party, who then takes that to the title company and they close the deal. If you've already opened escrow, you can transfer the escrow from yourself to them. They can pay you either at closing, or they can even pay you outside of closing.
One thing we forgot to mention was the assignment fee.
Assignment fees. Yeah, that's how you get paid.
Our assignment contract will also be out there on freewholesalecourse.com. So you put an assignment fee in there. When the C buyer comes and closes the transaction, the title company is going to actually wire you the check for the assignment fee.
Yep, or you can pick it up, but they'll have it for you. So those are really your two options. You can assign your contract, which is great because you just get paid. You don't even have to go to closing. You don't have to put up any money other than any escrow that you may or may not have already opened. And that's it. So if you double close the deal, there are advantages to doing a double close. Let's start with the disadvantage. It's going to cost you more. You're going to have to pay for closing costs on both sides. Now, if you find yourself a good title company that you like doing business with, and you send them a ton of business, they'll usually hook you up a little bit on not charging you full cost on both sides. Maybe they'll charge you full cost on one side, maybe only half cost on the back side. So you can save a little bit of money by doing those double closes. But again, that's a relationship type of thing you have to kind of build. But anyway, the advantages of doing a double close is you are protecting the numbers for the most part. So let's say that Mike sells me a property for $50,000, and I turn around and I sell it to Ray over here for $80,000. There's a $30,000 difference, a net profit of $30,000 minus the cost to close. I'm protecting the fact that I'm actually making $30,000 by doing a double close because the numbers are sheltered. So with an assignment,
that means Ray, the end buyer, doesn't see.
He doesn't see that I'm making the $30,000.
Because again, even if Ray's getting a good deal on it, and Ray's an experienced investor, $30,000 is a big pill to swallow for somebody to pay for.
That's a big pill. Even if he's going to make $30,000 on the back end by doing a rehab and then selling
or
it,
$50,000, who doesn't? Yeah.
But that's a lot of work that he's going to have to then go do in fixing the property and rehabbing it. Whereas I'm just literally finding it and selling the contract. So in certain cases, double close is better. We typically do an assignment if it's less than $5,000. If it's more than $5,000, we'll almost every single time double close it, just to protect our numbers and not to burn the bridges or give people bad taste in their mouth. due to the fact that we may be making more on the deal than they are.
And honestly, I prefer double closing. Like, I'm willing to pay a couple $100 just so that people don't know. Because even if it's a skinny deal, I'd just rather not have people know if I made $3,000 or $30,000. I think it's not really relevant. As long as they're happy with the deal that they're buying, there shouldn't be any issue with it.
I agree.
But again, I just don't like people to know. I mean,
so I don't want to get too deep into this, but really quick, let's talk about costs. Assignments, you have no cost.
Correct.
You literally it's a 1-page agreement. You can make it more if you like, but keep it simple. 1-page agreement, you say, hey, here's my A to B. I'm going to assign this to you. Here's what I need for the assignment, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 or more. And that's it. You walk away. When you're doing a double close, what can you expect in terms of closing? Now, again, everyone's going to have a different state, and if they're using title companies versus attorneys, let's use
an actual example.
Those fees are different. But for us, examples.
So an example. So say you have a property under contract for, and we're going to use simple numbers, $10,000, and you were going to sell it to a C buyer for $20,000. If you assigned it to them for the $20,000, there's going to be $10,000 in your pocket. They're going to pay the closing costs. All that stuff comes out of their end, or the buyer's or the seller's end, in the transaction. If you do a double close, you're purchasing the property. You're going to have to pay the closing costs on the purchase side, and you're going to have to sell it and pay closing costs on the sales side. So the end buyer still comes in with the same end amount, say his $20,000, but you've got the closing costs on both sides. Let's call it, say, $1,000, just round number. That's going to take $2,000 off of your profits. So your $10,000 profit from a $10,000 purchase to $20,000 sale just got eaten up with $2,000 worth of closing costs, so it's now $8,000. So again, and
that's a perfect example. However, I think those numbers are a little
inflated. They're absolutely high.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a double close for usually anywhere between $600 and $800, give or take, maybe a little more. As the price of the property goes up, the price of the closing goes up because of the title insurance policy that needs to be purchased. So typically, just kind of rule of thumb, if you have something that's under $50,000, you can usually double close for $700 to $800. If it's over $50,000, then you're going to typically be over $1,000.
We've got a good relationship with our title company too.
Exactly.
Though. I mean, we get pretty good rates.
Awesome. So next topic here, CYA clauses. Cover your arse.
Yeah. So my favorite one is contract subject to partner's approval. So the reason for that is, who's my partner?
Who is your partner?
Right.
My partner is my cat.
My partner is usually my C buyer.
But the idea here is that your partner can really be anybody. It's just kind of one of those things where
it's vague.
It's very vague, and it's vague for a reason. This deal is subject to my partner's approval. I have to get my partner to agree, and by saying that, by writing that into the offer or the contract, you're not really specifying that I need Mike to agree. You're just saying that I need my partner to agree. So you can have anybody be your partner, and once you find somebody else that will agree to buy the contract, then boom, you have met that need. My partner has agreed. Let's move forward. Okay.
So, and that's why I say it's my C buyer. It's always my C buyer is my partner, because they're my funding partner is what I call them. So as long as my funding partner agrees, well, then we're good to go. But if my funding partner says, no, you're asking too much, then it doesn't work out.
It doesn't work out.
So sorry, my partner doesn't approve of this deal.
Yep.
So it's kind of bending, I guess, the reality, if you would. But yeah, that's what I like.
Another one.
Yeah, go.
Subject to taxes, title, and value. We usually will put both of these in our agreements. Subject to taxes, title, and values is another great one. And the reason is because the property or the contract is obviously going to be subject to the taxes that are owed, because if the taxes that are owed on the property are more than what you're paying, then there's no deal. You can't do it. And that's obviously, same with the title. If there's liens, of $200,000 and you're only offering $80,000, well, then they're not going to sell you the property because you can't satisfy those liens. And then my favorite word in that sentence, so subject to taxes, title, and value, is value. Because value is one of those things where it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. It's like, who determines value? Everyone's going to have a different determination of what something is going to be worth.
It's vague again.
It's very vague, exactly.
Yeah,
so by
subjective.
saying taxes, title, and value, when you read that sentence, it looks very, very like to the point. Like, okay, it's subject to the taxes, title, and the value. Like, we can determine all these things. Value, it's going to be a lot more difficult to actually determine the value. So, second CYA clause we recommend, subject to taxes, title, and value. Next,
those are just two pretty good ones.
Yep.
Last thing I think we want to cover on contracts, I know we're getting kind of long here, is earnest money. So how much earnest money do you want to put down? And our opinion is as little as possible.
As little as possible. You know, unless your seller is going to request you put down, you know, a certain number or more than what you're offering, don't go any higher than you need to. So, you know, some of my contracts are $10. I try to usually shoot for $10. If I want the seller to know that I'm serious, then I'll usually put down $100. But it's very, very rare that I'll put down more than $100. If I do, I think the most I'll put down is $500. You know, but if I can get 10 or even 100, that's what I shoot for.
Right, and sometimes if the buyer's coming back and negotiating with you on the earnest money, and you know you've got a good deal,
whatever,
big deal.
If you have the intent to close it at that point, and you're saying,
if you've got a good deal,
make the deal happen. Exactly.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you're, you know, like, let's just see what we can do to try to help this person or something like that, you know, go for the lowest amount. You know, that's very possible. In regards to the earnest money, Mike, we use different contracts. We're business partners, but yet we still use different contracts. He's usually using the special sales contract, which is the Missouri Board of Realtors.
See, I think it's St. Louis
contract or St. Louis Board, where I'm using just a simple, you know, 1 or 2 page contract. So in my contract, it states that, you know, if I for any reason will default, then the buyer can keep my earnest money as liquid damages, and that is the only liquid damages that they can keep. So if I for any reason back out of my deal, which I try never to do, but it does happen, then I lose $10. So what, you know? Mike's contract actually states that the money's refunded to him, I believe, right? You want to read that sentence?
Yeah, so I give myself under special agreements in our contract. It says that the buyer shall have 15 days from acceptance to inspect, tour, or view the property. The buyer shall find the inspection satisfactory in buyer's sole judgment, or contract shall be null and void, and earnest money to be returned to buyer. Simple as that.
Simple as that. So you can kind of go either way, folks. You can decide what works best for you. The thing about contracts is there's really not one contract that you have to use. You can even, you know, kind of come up with your own contract, as long as the title company in your area, you know, will accept the verbiage that you're using. You'll be good to go. So at this point, I think we're kind of wrapping up contracts. Next week, we're going to talk about selling those contracts, building your buyers list, and dealing with your C buyers, your cash buyers. So what can you do today, folks? Send more offers. Send actual contracts as offers.
Write some contracts, exactly. Go out there to thediscountpropertyinvestor.com and find freewholesalecourse.com. On there, we've got some contracts to look at. Play around, find one that works for you, and write some contracts. Send some contracts.
Get them out there.
Exactly.
More contracts you send, the more offers you're sending, the more likely you are to get a killer deal and make yourself a good living. So, Mike, you want to end this episode with a quote?
Sure. In investing, what is comfortable is rarely profitable. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thanks in advance for your support. And remember, you make your money when you buy and get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.